You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. LSU heads to Starkville to take on Mississippi State Saturday morning, 11 a.m. We'll talk to Steve Robertson in 1 hour from right now. A part of the Scout Network over there. Does a great job covering Mississippi State, has for a long time. We always enjoy having Steve on. So we'll get to that 1 hour, our opposing media, sort of get the view behind enemy line. So we'll get to that. One of the real big questions I think that's going to be fun to watch is how that LSU offensive line handles the Mississippi State defensive front and how much we see Lance Heard. Of course, he made his debut a week ago against Grambling. We saw him play from the second quarter, the first possession of the second quarter for LSU, all the way through the remainder of the game. So he got a ton of work and certainly looked like he belonged. Now, the level of competition ratchets up dramatically this weekend against Mississippi State. But the thing that I'll remind you is all throughout fall camp, LSU went good on good. So we saw Lance Heard going up against guys like Savion Jones and Quincy Wiggins and Paris Shand there at that left end spot on the defense where Heard was playing right guard. So I don't know what the rotation is going to look like, but Brian Kelly told us point blank this week, and he is nothing if not candid, right? And we can all agree to that at this point. Brian Kelly told us point blank earlier this week that Lance Heard is going to play again this week. Like, that's going to be a rotation. And when they rotate, what they do is they put Heard in at right tackle and they kick Emery Jones into right guard. Well, Emery Jones met with reporters and said he's enjoying actually that move playing inside.
It's actually been fun. Coach Davis always teaches us, across the board. So I kind of watch guys get coached every day, and I kind of know what to do. Got a general idea what to do and everything. So it's just been a fun transition. I'm showing my flexibility on the O-line, which I think is going to be a great thing in the future. And I've been having fun. And
it is worth noting, and I actually tweeted this during the Florida State game. It was very obvious if you were watching. If you were watching for this, I should say. LSU became a left-handed running team against Florida State. They could only run behind the left side of their line with Will Campbell and Garrett Dellinger. When LSU tried to run to the right side behind Frazier and Emery Jones is where they were largely getting blown up. The Josh Williams goal line runs. They were trying to run right side, and it didn't go well. The fourth down give, or the read option with Jaden, was trying to go right and didn't go well. When they ran left, that's where their opportunity really was. The one exception, I think, would be the Josh Williams draw in the 2-minute offense before half, where he took it to the right side and ran for about 35 yards. I think, look, Emery Jones is a big, strong, physical guy, and he's a great run blocker. He was a left tackle in high school. They obviously played him right tackle last year. Now he's playing right tackle and right guard when Lance Heard goes in there. But if the objective is get your 5 best on the field, that's a way to do it. Because Lance Heard, I think, is one of your 5 best now. And if the way to do that is to get Heard in at right tackle and Jones in at right guard, not only are your 5 best on the field, but you're also putting a tremendous run blocker on the right side, which Lance Heard is unmistakably a physical, mauling run blocker. The thing that's probably going to take time for him is pass protection. That's just kind of how it goes when you're a young offensive lineman. Will Campbell experienced this early last year. Very good run blocking, struggled in his pass sets early in the season, and it came along and kept getting better and better, as we suspect will happen with Heard. But if Heard does play an extensive amount this weekend, that is an illustration that they're trying to run the ball and not be so predictable because they'd be able to run to the right side behind Emery Jones and Lance Heard. By the way, here was Emery Jones talking about what it's been like mentoring Lance Heard on that right side.
coming in at tackle, I had a whole bunch of questions. Why is this like this? Or when this picture happens, what do I need to think? And I just been kind of trying to help him think the right way about things, like gap zone. You need to start with your eyes outside instead of inside, to assess the edge. So I've just been doing little things like that to kind of get his mind in the right spot. And I feel like he's been doing a great job at, picking up.
I think Emery Jones is a great teacher there because he literally went through exactly what Lance Heard is going through right now. Highly recruited dude from the state, comes in, doesn't play the first week against Florida State, gets on the field against the SWAC opponent week 2, plays really well, and now is going to get more of an opportunity in week 3 against the conference opponent. I mean, it is the exact same blueprint they used for Emery Jones they can use now for Lance Heard. And this weekend is going to be interesting going to Starkville because Mississippi State's run defense through 2 weeks has been pretty exceptional. Now, they give up 83 rushing yards against Southeastern. I understand who the competition is, but there's still warm bodies over there trying. So 83 rush yards against Southeastern, and this past weekend against Arizona ran it for 91 yards. So that Mississippi State rush defense right now is averaging about 85 yards rushing per game through 2 weeks. Now, Arizona did throw for 340. So that's worth noting. Arizona threw for 340 and ran it for 91. So, they put up almost 450 yards of offense against this Mississippi State defense. But the point that I think is most impactful, and I think this is why it's going to be important if Lance Heard gets some run this weekend, if we see Logan Diggs in the game more as a more dynamic runner. Last week against Arizona, Mississippi State's defensive front, they had just 1 sack, but they had 9 TFLs. 9 TFLs. So that's a defensive front that is talented, that is active, and you have a defensive-minded head coach who is going to focus on that, clearly. So, yes, I think this is a really, really big opportunity for the LSU offensive line against that Mississippi State defensive front. They are not as good, as big, or as active as what you saw against Florida State, but they are certainly much better than what you saw against Grambling. So it's a sliding scale, right? So where does Mississippi State fall, and how does LSU handle them? It's going to be very indicative of what you're going to see in conference play moving forward as now you're into the meat of your schedule in conference play. The one other thing that Emery Jones said that has gotten some attention from people in Starkville, as you might expect, because that's a fan base and a relative program that has, look, they lack resources, they lack historical success. I think in many respects they understand that at Mississippi State, that they're not Alabama or LSU or Florida or Georgia or Tennessee or programs who have great tradition, winning tradition and championships and tons of resources. I mean, I think that's understood, but it's a program that also doesn't like head padding. And this kind of felt like that from Emery Jones, and there's some state people that didn't take it too kindly.
They don't have a whole bunch of star players, so what they do is kind of move guys around a lot. Like every play, first, second down, they're moving guys, line games, stuff like that, just kind of making you play it true. You got to be able to respond to movement, and I feel like in our O-line room, we're doing a great job of doing that. We're buying into the game plan. Everybody's, bought in. So I feel like we're going to do great blocking their movement and, busting runs.
They don't have a lot of star players. Everything else he said after that probably is going to fall on deaf ears because when people want motivation, they're going to find it. And Emery served it up. Now, I don't know that matters a lick. I still think LSU is the better team, and I think LSU should be able to go and control the line of scrimmage on both sides in this ballgame and win this game. That's why LSU's a 10-point favorite on the road in this game. At home, they'd be a 2-touchdown favorite. But it's also a thing that State is going to latch onto, and you never know what motivation might spark in people. I mean, we talked last week about Deion and this fabricated motivation with Nebraska and Matt Rule disrespecting him, or however that went. I still never heard anything from Matt Rule about disrespecting Deion, but we all saw it in The Last Dance where Michael Jordan was straight up making up stories about things that underlings said to him on the court so he could go out and score 60 on him. Like, different dudes find motivation in different places, so see if Emery gave him any on when he met with reporters there saying they don't have any star players, which isn't wrong. I mean, there is no Jeffrey Simmons on that defensive front. There is no Montez Sweat on that defensive front. There is no guy that was a former 5-star or a projected first-round pick on that defensive front. But that's a defensive front last week that held Arizona, a Power 5 team, to 91 rushing yards, had 9 tackles for loss and a sack, and 8 passes defensed. So they are active. Their head coach is a defensive-minded guy. That is a challenge. So get your head on straight and go play well Saturday morning and start. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.